Okay, so a bit more progress here on the Kyosho Lazer ZX-S Evolution, quasi reproduction build. As you can see, the roller is complete. I also have the electronics installed. I did have to do a little bit of tweaking to the front suspension compared to what I showed you guys last time in the previous video. So you'll notice here that I now have the inner camber link mounted against the front shock tower instead of the rear brace back here. I actually took that entire rear brace off. The reason for that was because I had to play some games with the steering rack in order to get it to work correctly. So the way I had the steering rack set up before, I wasn't actually getting a full throw on the steering, and that's because when I had this what do you call it? The drag link here upside down, what that meant was the alignment of the ball stud and the ball cup was sort of running up against the arm that comes out of this part of the bell crank here. So at a certain part of the throw, the ball cup would get bound up against the arm of the steering bell crank. So I had to set this up so that the drag link rested above the arm, or otherwise in such a way so that the ball cup and the ball stud don't actually run up against the bell crank arm. So I had to play around with different heights and things. So what I eventually ended up with, and maybe it's a little hard to see here, but the bell crank is way down and there's a 2mm spacer down there. I took the ball stud that was previously facing downwards, flipped it around to face upwards, so this part here clears all the belts. There's no rubbing there. The bell crank arm just barely clears everything on the like the front gearbox and the inner hinge pin mount. It does clear those. And then I took this drag link here and mounted it so that it's on top of those arms with the ball studs sort of coming out and up. In addition to that, I also changed the setup for the steering knuckle ball stud. So as you can see here, there's quite a lot of spacing there. So what I did was I put in a ball stud very similar to this one. So you put a screw on the back end and then you screw the ball stud in on the top. And I have 6mm of spacer there. You can also see, maybe it's easier if I just flip it. Right there. So that gray aluminum thing, that's a 6mm spacer. And the reason why I went that much is I just wanted to get good alignment between this end and this end of the steering link, so that way you get very little bump steer. The way I had it set up before, I was getting quite a lot of bump steer. So you got to play games with spacers either on the bell crank, or I should say the drag link, and on the steering knuckle, so that in order to minimize bump steer. So that's all sorted out. And with the inner camber link here on the front shock tower instead of on the back, there's actually no interference with the diff outride, even though I am using the lower holes here on the shock tower. So thankfully there's no interference there, which is good. When I set up the steering rack this way, it would have interfered with that rear brace. Well, actually, let me rephrase. Some of the ways in which I was experimenting with the steering rack would have interfered with that brace, so I removed the brace. But now that this has been pushed way down, I could probably put that brace back on and have it function just fine. But I figure I will leave it off and continue to use the front tower here to mount the inner camber link, because it's actually easier, because I can put a screw in this way and I just use some pliers to hold down this lock nut and I tighten it down. If I'm doing the same mount on the rear brace, I need an L-shaped Allen wrench to get the screw from this side, and I gotta use like needle nose pliers on the inside here to hold down the lock nut. It's a tighter and slower a process to change my settings. So I'm actually kind of preferring using the front tower here. I didn't really change anything on the rear. That's all the same. As far as electronics go, as you can see here, I have a Tekin RS Gen 3 The reason I went with this is because it's small. I do have other speed controls, like some old Novak Pulses that I thought about putting in here, but they're way too big. So you need something tiny, either something like this or like a Turnigy Trackstar 120 amp speed control. Those will work fine. Yeah, so that's kind of it. It was kind of a pain to install this because it's all tight. You know, the wiring's really tight. Getting the electronics to fit. I had to mount the receiver up on top of the servo here. You know, just mounting all of these wires so that they don't scrape against the upper deck and end up, you know, removing the insulation, and then trying to mount the wire, the posts that connect, you know, the inside terminals of the saddle packs. That's also kind of a pain. It's the same thing with, you know, any of the lasers I have. It's always a bit of a drag to do that, but it's all there. You know, I'm not really, I don't do dialed wiring setups, but as far as wiring goes, this is, you know, pretty good for me. And I've been playing around with it a little bit in, you know, my basement here, just driving it back and forth. And it does have really nice cornering, like really nice cornering. So I'm quite impressed. I think this will be really great on the track. It's just a matter of time before I actually get to run it. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.